have a question. What is your favorite song and how do you connect with it? Is it when you fell in love or through something really difficult? I'm your host, Tiffany Mason. Now join me as I interview others and we take a walk down memory lane with them. Let's get lost in why that music matters to them. Turn up your radio and let's explore Memories with a Beat. Hello, Podcast Land. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Memories with a Beat. Today, I have with me Marie, and she is such a doll. I reached out to a podcast group. I didn't have an episode ready for you guys. I'm so sorry. So I scrambled at the last minute, and Marie swooped in to save me. So thank you so much for your time, Marie. If you wouldn't mind, would you let my audience know just a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you do?
Sure. My name is Marie Gettel-Gilmartin, and I live in Portland, Oregon. And I am a communications consultant and writer. And my mission is to prevent people from being boring, because a lot of what people do when they write and communicate is they think they have to be really formal and use a lot of words, but they really quickly lose their listeners that way. So
True story.
Yeah. So I have 30 years of experience in writing and editing and leadership. So that's what I do in my business, which is called Fertile Ground Communications. And let's see, I have 3 boys aged 15 to 25. I'm married to a British guy that I met when I was living in Japan. And he was a stay-at-home dad for most of my kids' growing up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, interesting fun fact. I've been to Japan. I spent 10 days there because I took Japanese in high school.
Oh.
Should have taken Spanish, but I took Japanese and I loved every single second of it.
Wow.
Yes. And then I think just being married to anybody with an accent is absolutely amazing.
Right.
So I help people with their podcasts. And 2 things. First of all, helping people not be boring. Thank you. I can't tell you how many times I have people that will do their outro or their intro and send it to me. And I'm like, no. You got to inject a little bit of emotion in there. And then the second thing is that I have a podcaster that just started with me, and she lives in Ireland, but she has a South African accent. And my favorite accent ever is the South African accent. So I get to hear it all the time. So I wonder, if you probably feel the same way that you get to hear that accent. Okay, I'm going to interrupt myself. Do your kids have any of his accent?
They don't, they've been raised in the U.S., but my youngest son is 15 and he has always had a real gift for accents. So he can pour it on, in a moment. I mean, he could do the posh English accent. He could do the Cockney accent. He can do just about any accent.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Well, here, Portland, Oregon is very beautiful. Now I have another podcaster that I help out, and she lives in Seattle, and her partner just moved to Portland, and she was talking about how it rains really hard and then it stops, and then mists all the time. But she said it's like the Emerald City during summer.
Oh, I don't know if that's like Seattle mists. I don't know. It does rain a lot here. I think it actually rains more in Seattle. It's about 5 degrees colder up there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I love the whole Pacific Northwest, but I am happy to be a Portlander.
Yeah, awesome. I want you have a couple of podcasts. If you wouldn't mind, will you break those down for us a little bit, and maybe even, how you started them or what gave you the idea for the concept?
Yeah, so my first podcast is called Finding Fertile Ground, and it is stories of grit and resilience and people finding their fertile ground through enduring obstacles in their lives. The second one is called Companies That Care, and I interview people who are business leaders who are trying to make the world a better place for all. So like sustainability or like corporate philanthropy, or they've taken something. Actually, one of my favorite guests, her name is Julie Allen, and I interviewed her for Companies That Care first of all, and then I interviewed her for Finding Fertile Ground because she has a history of eating disorders.
She's had multiple?
Well, no, not multiple, but years of decades of eating disorder issues. Sorry, not. Yeah, well, she may.
That's okay.
I guess she did.
Yeah.
probably did have more than one. She probably did have anorexia and bulimia,
Mm-hmm.
but her parents had to take a second mortgage on their house to help her with treatment because treatment's very expensive, right?
Oh yeah.
And she
Mm-hmm.
also has
Mm-hmm.
just dealt with eating disorders, you know. And so 6 weeks after she had her first baby, she went into a dressing room and tried to try on clothes. She ended up in tears.
Oh no.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so she determined she would open up a boutique where every woman would feel beautiful when they're in the boutique.
Hmm.
So she did that. And then she also started a foundation to raise money to help people pay for eating disorder treatment. So it's just a wonderful concept. And she really, yeah, she's really inspiring. So I
Wow.
interviewed her for companies that care, but then I delved more into her background of eating disorders on Fighting Fertile Ground. So they overlap a lot because a lot of people who go through a tough experience then start a company.
Yeah.
So the episode I just launched today, the woman's name is Devin Tomiak, and her younger brother died of suicide.
Mm.
And she was pregnant and she had a 2-year-old. So she really wanted to create something that would build resilience in kids. So she
Oh.
started a company that creates these conversation cards called the Biggies cards. And it's all about building resilience in children. So there's another example of how somebody's taken something horrible they went through and has created something of it. It's very inspiring.
Yep. I love when people find their purpose through trauma, you know. That's such a
Exactly.
beautiful thing. I completely agree. Completely agree. Okay, so first of all, I found you on a page about podcasts, right? Like who can be my guest. But I had posted that it was a music podcast. So are you a super musical person, or is it just, have you picked a song today that's just one that you just really connect with?
Yeah, I am a super musical person. I started playing the violin when I was like 9 years old. I used to want to be a singer, you know, when I was a kid. So I love to sing. And I play the guitar and the mandolin and used to play the violin and the cello. I'm in a Rock Voices choir where we sing rock songs and we have to memorize all of the parts and the lyrics, and it's quite a challenge for my aging brain, but it's really good for me. And my husband sings in that as well. We're very
Oh,
excited
wow.
because we shut down. We're very strict in Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
unlike Florida. We're very strict here, and we shut everything down. Because choirs are like one of the worst places, and so we have been doing like online. Last
Mm.
summer we did in person outside,
Mhm.
but we have been online the whole time, and it's just not the same. We're very close knit choir.
When the pandemic started, I mean, it first hit in Washington, right?
It did, and
Yeah.
actually there was a choir, I think in Washington, where it really spread through the choir.
Mm.
And yeah, so our choir, it's based out of New England, and they've just been very careful. So it's been horrible though. I mean, doing choir on Zoom and on
No.
Facebook Live is
Yeah.
awful because you can't hear anybody else, right? So we are starting up again in a couple of weeks, and I'm so
Yay.
excited. So we're very like you have to be vaccinated, you have to wear
Yeah.
a mask. It's very
Regimented.
strict,
Yep.
but we'll be able to sing together, which is really exciting.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, so I
awesome.
love I love music. The other personal connection to music I have is my oldest son was born at 24 weeks,
Mm.
just weighing 1 pound 6 ounces,
Oh my
and
gosh.
we sang to him every day
Mm.
and became known in the NICU as the singing parent. So he is really into music, and that is why I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah, probably. Well, I know, like, there's probably science that backs it up, but like, they hear your voice while you're pregnant and then you have the baby and they can still hear you. And so if you can't touch them, the next best thing is that singing. I did the same thing actually while I was pregnant with my babies. I have a specific song for each one of them. Unfortunately, middle child, they always
oh,
get the short stick. His was ABCs. It had to be ABCs because my oldest son at the time could sing that with me. So we would
oh,
always
that's
sing
kind
to
of sweet,
baby
though.
Parker, yeah, ABCs. And then when he came
Oh,
out, I know that you had shared with me previously, you had, sung to your son that same song, at nap time or when they got hurt or, when they're scared. And it was the same thing. So I can completely resonate, with that idea of having a song that they connect with comfort.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an overachiever, so we had 4 songs.
Oh.
So we had 4 songs that we would sing in the NICU, and then when he got home, we would sing to him the same songs at bedtime,
Mm,
and then with my other 2 is so bedtime could be very long because we had to do a little mini concert,
yeah.
you know? So
Well, he's thriving now. That's what matters, right?
yes, he's doing
And
very
you
well,
said
and
he loves music?
oh my gosh, he's obsessed with music, and he loves to go to he goes to concerts all by himself because his new wife is really not as into music. I mean, she likes
Mhm.
music, but she's not as into concerts as he is, so
Yep.
he goes by himself because he loves it so
Hey.
much. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You got to do what you love, man. So I love that she at least gives him that permission to feel comfortable to go do it by himself.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, if we can dive into your song that you've chose for my audience today, what is the name of it? Who sings it? And then how do you connect with it?
So the name is Rise Up, and it's by Andra Day. I have a long association with that song. I first really related to it during the week of the Kavanaugh hearing.
Mm.
As a sexual assault survivor,
Mm.
it was really a hard week or a hard period for me. Actually, the whole year or 2 before that as well with the Me Too movement really brought up a lot of stuff for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wrote a blog post about that song and about how powerful it was for me at that time. And so that was the first thing, and I don't remember when I wrote that, but I just remember writing this
Mm-hmm.
blog post, kind of pouring out my
Mm.
soul and using the lyrics from the song. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was in May 2020, after George Floyd was murdered, I actually wrote an article about the weaponization of white women's tears. It was about the Amy
Mm.
Cooper situation in Central Park. She called on Christian Cooper, who was burning while black, and about how she cried and all that. So my article went viral on LinkedIn, and I got the attraction of a couple of podcasters who
Mm.
interviewed me to talk about the article.
Mm-hmm.
So the first guy his name's Charles Jackson, and he's out of Florida. And the second woman
Okay.
is Jackie Capers Brown. She's out of South Carolina. And when Jackie was interviewing me, she asked me a couple of questions. One of them was, what is my favorite song? And I told her it was Rise Up, and she said it was her favorite song too. So she really
Fun
inspired me
coincidence.
because, yes, she really inspired me because she has had such an incredible life of grit and resilience. She has been through a lot of hard times, like the death of her mother as a child and the death of her own son.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the conversation with her, when I learned a lot about her, I decided that I think I would like podcasting too. I'm a communicator, and I just thought it would be really interesting to interview other people whose stories have inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
So, without a lot of prep, I jumped in and I became a podcaster. So, yeah. So I interviewed Jackie. She interviewed me, and then I interviewed her, and I interviewed Charles too. I've had a couple of conversations with Charles, and what's really been really cool about podcasting is I've also really prioritized people from historically excluded communities. So I've
Okay.
only had one white guy on my podcast. So it's mostly women, queer folks, people of color, immigrants, that kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I shouldn't say I've only had one straight white guy. I've had a few white guys, but they were not straight. So it was actually really amazing during 2020 that I had these really powerful conversations about race on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And people
Mm-hmm.
were really open with me about what was going on in their hearts, then. So it was really
Mm-hmm.
healing for me, really inspiring to hear what people have gone through and, how it's made them stronger. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the
Yeah.
song, I have that song to thank me,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say there's such a strong connection between, trauma and finding purpose. And so really I would imagine a lot of these people could be on either one of your podcasts,
yes, that is true.
showing resilience and then what they did with it.
That is
Yeah.
true. Yeah, which is kind of why I decided to start the second one. Partly because I have experience with corporate social responsibility. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's really my interest. People using companies and people using capitalism really to do something good in the world. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
really interested in that. And then also, like you said, a lot of people used their difficulties and started companies based on what they had survived. I mean, throughout my podcast, I've interviewed a ton of people who've done that. So it's very inspiring.
Yeah. When you need to lean on this song, is it something like it comes on the radio and you're like, oh, I love that? Or is it more intentional where you have like a playlist and you bring it up? How do you utilize this song? And is it when, life is kind of kicking you down? Or is it also just a feel-good song for you?
Yeah, I don't listen to the radio very much, mostly because I don't really
Okay.
drive, I mean,
Okay.
I work from home, I don't drive around. That's why I listen to the radio then, right? But,
Right.
yeah, so I listen to it on my phone or I listen to it on Spotify, and
Hmm.
I have a playlist that I made in the year 2020. My word of the year was shine, so I created a women's empowerment song list to inspire me to shine. And that's on my list. It's also, but if I'm in the mood to listen to that song, I just pull it up and just,
Yeah.
like I did as soon as I arranged to be on your podcast. I've been listening to it a few times today. Like, oh, yeah.
I just love her voice. I love that it's kind of raspy, kind of crackly, a lot of emotion in there. I love towards the beginning when she says, I see you. We're gonna walk this out. Just feels like an arm around your shoulder, like someone's got you. Like let's go. Knock this out together. Let's be a team. I support you. I love that feeling of that song. So she sets the tone right away in that song.
Yes, I agree. And I love the way she's talking about just picking yourself up over and over again. And, that's it's
Hmm.
just really inspiring when you hear people who've done that, especially going
Hmm.
through. I mean, some of my podcast guests have just been through hell, absolute hell, and they are able to dust themselves off, eventually, not right away, obviously, but eventually. A lot of people who have been sexually abused or, had some other really horrific thing happen to them. So, yeah, and a lot of immigrants have been through, in particular, through a lot of stuff and like reinventing themselves when they come to the US. And it's just really inspiring.
Sure. Yeah, like a whole new identity, really.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah,
having to
I
learn
never really
English
thought of
and
it.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 interesting. Did you say Andra Day actually did a Billie Holiday movie or something?
She did. I think it was called maybe it's the People versus Billie Holiday, the U.S. versus Billie Holiday, or the People versus Billie Holiday. And Diana Ross did a movie about Billie Holiday, I think in the 70s, where she really focused on Billie Holiday's perhaps heroin addiction. She was addicted
Okay.
to, some kind of narcotics, and it was a really difficult movie. I remember watching it when I was much younger. Really difficult. I mean, Diana Ross was amazing as the
Yeah,
actor,
yeah.
amazing. But this movie is more about the Billie Holiday, the activist. She wrote a song called Strange Fruit, which
Hmm.
was a catalyst I think it was a catalyst for the civil rights movement. It was all about lynching.
Oh.
Very difficult song. And in the movie, it talks about how basically the government was out to get her. They wanted her to stop singing the song, and she refused
Hmm.
to. So they took away, I mean, they really took away so much from Billie It's very sad what they took away from
Mm.
her. Like, they imprisoned her, and then they took away her ability to sing in clubs throughout New York. So, singing was her livelihood, and
Yeah.
they took that away from her. And so Andra Day leads a very austere life. She is a celibate, and she doesn't drink or smoke or anything.
Mm.
And Billie Holiday was very sensual, very, just like soaked up life and whatever came across her path, drinking, smoking, drugs. And so Andra Day had to embody this, totally different woman. But she was really inspired to do that because Billie Holiday was her hero. So it's a really powerful, powerful movie if you get a chance to watch.
Wow.
Movie or series? I'm trying to remember now. Everything in the pandemic is like all like
I know.
I was like, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I think it came out last year.
Well, we will find out the details for
Yes.
sure, and I'm gonna put it in the show notes. I'm gonna put Strange Fruit in there. I'm gonna put your Shine playlist. So if anybody else is wanting to feel empowered, I hope you guys will check out her podcasts. They sound absolutely amazing. finding fertile ground, just stories of resilience and how people have overcome things, companies that care, these businesses that are hopefully paving for a better future tomorrow. I mean, what a great thing to talk about. They're both so inspiring. So I feel like after your interviews, you must just be like completely filled up and like ready to conquer the world, because they just have such great stories or insight that you're gaining from each interview. So I think that that's amazing. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Marie. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and talking to me about this fun song. I think fun song, because rising up, that's fun. That's empowering. That's inspiring. I just love it.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about something completely unrelated to, like business or all the,
Right.
most of my interviews are about much more serious topics. And I love music, and I love the way that music just, the way it affects my soul. It's so life-giving to me. So I love your topic of your podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone. Check the show notes for all the goodies. I hope that this episode was music to your ears. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? You never know what rabbit holes we'll get to go down and explore. Were you reminded of anything? Or anyone? Share what it was with me in a review. Honestly, the reviews don't do me any favors other than knowing people like you are listening to this podcast. Insert cheesy wink. However, the ratings do help, so leave me 5 stars. You know you wanna. This podcast was produced by Virtual You, supporting you in all things podcasting. To connect or check me out on social media, I know you're just gonna stalk me. But see the show notes, as always, for details. Can't wait to dive into my next guest's memories with a beat. Hit subscribe now. You don't want to miss the next episode.